My son, David, drained my entire 401k and took his wife and her mother on a luxury cross-country trip. I just smiled. 3 days later, he called me sobbing. "Mom, what did you do?" My retribution was complete. Eleanor Vance's hands, mapped with the fine lines of 68 years of labor, held the ceramic mug tightly. The morning light in Youngstown, Ohio, was a weak, watery gray, filtered through the old lace curtains of her small, paid-off house on the south side. The air smelled of damp pavement and the faint, metallic tang of the nearby Mahoning River, a scent that clung to the city like a memory of its steel-forged past, a ghost of industry. She had lived in this house for 45 years. She had brought her son home from the hospital to this house. She had grieved her husband in this house. Eleanor sat at her worn Formica kitchen table, the same one David had done his homework on 30 years ago, its yellowed surface etched with faint knife marks and a single ancient crayon scribble she never had the heart to scrub away. In front of her was her old, slightly sluggish laptop, a gift from David 5 Christmases ago. She was checking her retirement account. The 401k she had diligently fed for 40 years, first as a line worker at the steel mill, then as an office cleaner at the university after the mill shut down. It was a monument to a life of waking up in the dark and coming home with aching feet. The roof was leaking again, a persistent rhythmic drip near the chimney, and the roofer's estimate was sitting right next to her coffee, a stark white paper demanding $4,000. She typed in her password, her fingers stiff with arthritis. The page refreshed, the blue circle spinning, spinning, spinning. She sipped her coffee, which was slightly bitter. Then the page loaded. She blinked, adjusting her reading glasses. She read the number. $0. Available balance. $0. Her breath hitched, a small, sharp intake of air that was lost in the ticking of the kitchen clock. It was a mistake. It had to be. A computer glitch. A display error. These things happened? She refreshed the page, her index finger jabbing the F5 key. $0. She refreshed it again, her heart starting a low, cold drumbeat against her ribs. $0. Her heart didn't pound. It sank. It was a heavy, cold drop into her stomach, a feeling she hadn't had since the day the foreman, his face smudged with soot and shame, had stood on this very porch to tell her about Frank's accident at the plant. Her hands began to tremble, not with weakness, but with a cold, rising dread. Over $110,000, her entire life's work, her security, her promise to herself that she would never, ever be a burden to her son. Gone. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers thick and clumsy. She called the 800 number for the investment company. The robotic voice was an insult, a cheerful, automated voice that asked her to listen carefully as our menu options have changed. She pressed 0 repeatedly, a frantic, silent scream for a human being. Finally, a human. A young man with a neutral, bored voice, probably sitting in a cubicle 1,000 miles away. "Yes, Mrs. Vance, I see the account," he said, after she'd given him her social security number, her mother's maiden name, her first pet's name. "It looks like the funds were transferred out 3 days ago." "Transferred?" "I didn't transfer anything," Eleanor said, her voice quiet, almost a whisper, as if saying it too loudly would make it true. I'm just trying to get money for my roof." "Ma'am, the transfer was initiated online from a recognized IP address in Columbus, Ohio. It was a full liquidation of the 401k assets, moved to a joint checking account at—" He paused, typing. "Ah, a joint account in the names of Eleanor Vance and David M. Vance." David, her son. The son she had added to the account just in case. "In case I fall, David." in case I can't make decisions. He had smiled that beautiful smile of his, held her hand. Don't worry, Mom. I'll always take care of you. It's just a formality. And where did the money go from that account? She asked, her throat closing, already knowing the answer before the words left her mouth. Let's see. A single wire transfer was made the same day. A payment of, wow, $110,000 to Midwest Luxury RV Sales in Columbus, Ohio. Eleanor didn't say thank you. She didn't say goodbye. She pressed the end button, her thumbprint leaving a smudge on the screen. Silence. The kitchen clock ticked, a loud, judgmental sound in the small house. The drip from the leak in the living room echoed it. Tick, drip, tick, drip. Her future, her security, dripping away into a plastic bucket. She stared at the wall, at a framed photo of David in his cap and gown from Ohio State University. His smile was so bright, so full of promise. She had sold her husband's prized 1968 Ford Mustang, the only thing of value he'd left her, his cherry red weekend joy, to pay for that degree. The old landline phone on the wall jangled, its ring sharp enough to make her jump, scattering the terrible silence. She picked it up, her hand on autopilot. Hello? Eleanor! Honey, it's Mildred from next door. Oh my goodness, are you sitting down? Did you see David's Instagram? Mildred's voice was high with secondhand excitement. Mildred, a widow herself, lived for her grandchildren and the social media gossip they fed her. No, Mildred, I don't look at that very often. Well, you have to. My granddaughter just showed me. Lord, Eleanor, your David has really made it. He and Jess, they bought one of those massive RVs. You know, the kind that looks like a rock star's tour bus. It's gorgeous. Black and silver, shiny as a new dime. Eleanor swallowed, the inside of her mouth suddenly tasting like copper, like old pennies. An RV, she repeated, her voice flat. And the pictures. Mildred barreled on, oblivious to the abyss that had just opened in her neighbor's kitchen. They're already at the Grand Canyon. David and Jess and... Oh, that's her mother, Barbara, isn't it? Yes, all three of them holding up champagne glasses. The sun is setting. It's just like a movie. New beginnings, he wrote. Isn't that wonderful? He's taking them on a big trip. Eleanor's grip on the receiver tightened until her knuckles were white. Yes, Mildred. Wonderful. She hung up the phone and walked very slowly, her feet seeming to weigh 1,000 pounds, to the living room. She picked up the old tablet her granddaughter-in-law had given her 2 Christmases ago, the one she only used for solitaire and checking the weather. She fumbled with the password. She opened the Instagram app, and there it was. David. Her son, her only child. He was standing in the Arizona desert, the sun setting behind him, painting the sky in violent shades of orange and purple. He had his arm around his wife, Jessica. Jess, who always seemed to be appraising Eleanor's furniture with a faint pitying smile, as if calculating its worthlessness. And next to them, beaming, was Jess's mother, Barbara, a woman who spoke with a pinched accent, as if she were perpetually smelling something bad, even in her own expensive Columbus suburb. They were clinking glasses, champagne flutes, in front of a gleaming, monstrously large black and silver motorhome. It was bigger than Eleanor's entire house. David's caption read, "The next chapter begins. We deserve this." Freedom, living, the dream, cross-country. Eleanor scrolled down, her thumb trembling. A comment from Jess posted just an hour ago with a string of emojis. The best early inheritance a girl could ask for. Thanks for making it happen, honey. And thank you, mom-in-law. The money emoji, the winking kiss, the casual cruelty of it, public and unashamed. They hadn't just taken her money. They were mocking her with it. They were toasting their new life. A life built on the rubble of her own. A life paid for with her husband's death and her 40 years of labor. A strange, hot feeling spread through her chest. But it wasn't tears. It wasn't despair. It was something else. Something cold and hard and sharp, like a shard of ice forming where her heart used to be. Eleanor Vance, a 68-year-old widow from Youngstown, Ohio, who had just lost her entire life savings, looked at the picture of her son celebrating his theft. And she smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a woman who had just realized she had absolutely nothing left to lose. And as her father, a steelworker through and through, used to say, a woman with nothing left to lose is at last truly free to do what needs to be done. Inside the luxurious RV, parked on the rim of the Grand Canyon, Jess kicked her feet up on the polished walnut dashboard. The interior smelled of new leather and expensive air freshener. "See, baby?" she said, sipping her champagne. "I told you it was a good idea." That money was just sitting there, rotting. She was never going to use it. I know," David said, staring out at the vast canyon, trying to feel the sense of freedom he'd posted about. He felt a small, nagging tightness in his chest, a flicker of his mother's face, but he pushed it down with the bubbles. "She's 68, David," Barbara chimed in, refilling her own glass. She was wearing a new cashmere travel set. "What's she going to do?" "Go on a cruise? Please, she's from Youngstown. Her idea of a good time is church bingo and a fish fry. We're using it. We're living. It's better than it all going to some depressing nursing home in a few years, right? This is an investment in our happiness." "Right," David said, taking a large gulp of champagne. "Right. We deserve this." What David didn't know was that his mother's quiet strength, forged in the steel mills of Ohio, was about to be weaponized. Her love had been taken for granted, and her silence had been mistaken for weakness. If you believe Eleanor deserves her justice, and if you want to see how this ungrateful son gets exactly what's coming to him, take a moment to like this video, comment below with what you would do in Eleanor's position, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel, Aunt Millie's Tales. The foundation of betrayal has been laid. Now, watch the house of cards collapse. Eleanor Vance was not a soft woman. Life in the Rust Belt didn't allow for it. She was born in the shadow of the Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company, and she married a man who worked the blast furnace. She had been a line worker herself, packing and inspecting, until the plant started laying people off in the late 70s, the Black Monday that had gutted the valley. Her husband, Frank, had held on, working double shifts, his hands permanently stained with grease, his lungs permanently dusted with ore. He died on a Tuesday, a scaffolding collapse, a failure of equipment the company had refused to replace. David was only 8. Eleanor didn't crumble. She went to the funeral, collected the laughably small insurance check, and got a job cleaning offices at Youngstown State University. She scrubbed toilets, emptied trash cans, and buffed floors in the dead of night, all while raising David. He was her entire world. He was her redemption. He was smart, sensitive. He wasn't going to end up in a mill. He wasn't going to die young like his father, his body broken for a paycheck. He was going to get out. He was going to have a clean life, with clean hands and a bright future. When he got into Ohio State University for accounting, Eleanor wept with joy for the first time since Frank had proposed. But the scholarships didn't cover everything. The gap was thousands of dollars. That's when she made the decision. Frank's only love, besides her and David, was his cherry red 1968 Ford Mustang. It sat in their garage, covered by a tarp, a gleaming, muscular relic of a better time. She sold it, She sold it to a collector in Cleveland for less than it was worth because tuition was due in a week. David had cried. "Mom, no, that's Dad's." "We can't. Your father would have wanted this," she'd said, her voice firm, her hands gripping his shoulders. "He would have traded that car 100 times over for this. He would have wanted you to have a desk, not a furnace. Now go. Go and make us proud." And he did. For a while. He graduated with honors. He got a good job at a mid-level accounting firm in Columbus, a clean, new city 2 hours away. He had escaped. Then he met Jessica. Jess was from Dublin, a wealthy Columbus suburb where all the houses looked the same and all the lawns were unnaturally green. Her family had money, or at least they acted like they did. Her mother, Barbara, was a perfectly manicured woman who corrected Eleanor's grammar at their first meeting. "Oh, Eleanor, you're just so authentic," Barbara had said, looking around Eleanor's small, immaculate living room as if it were a museum exhibit on poverty. "It's just quaint." Jess was subtler, but just as cruel. "David, honey, do you think your mom would mind if we brought our own bottled water next time? The tap here just tastes so industrial." Eleanor saw it happening. The slow, insidious poisoning. David's weekly calls became monthly. His visits home for her birthday or Christmas became short, obligatory stop-ins where he and Jess sat on the edge of the sofa, checking their phones. "Mom, Jess and I are thinking of upgrading our house. We're looking at properties in Upper Arlington. You know, for the school district." "Mom, we're joining the country club. It's for, networking. You have to spend money to make money." "Mom, you don't understand. This is how the world works now. You can't just work hard and save. That's poor people thinking, Mom." That phrase, "poor people thinking," had felt like a slap. It was Jess's voice coming out of her son's mouth. The boy who had watched her count pennies for milk, the boy who had worn second-hand clothes without complaint, was now ashamed of the very values that had built his future. The final betrayal had been seeded a year ago. David had come to visit, alone, which was rare. He seemed nervous, avoiding her eyes, fiddling with his expensive watch. "Mom, my lawyer, our lawyer, said it's a good idea for us to get our finances in order. Jess is pregnant. A lie, as it turned out. She's worried, about what would happen if something happened to you. We should probably get you on a joint account with me, just for emergencies, to pay your bills if you can't. And we should probably update your will," he'd added, trying to sound casual. Eleanor had been wary. "My will is simple, David. The house goes to you. That's all there is." "I know, Mom, but..." "Jess, she's my wife. The lawyer said it's cleaner if she's on it too. As a co-beneficiary of the house. Just in case something happens to me. So she's not left with nothing." Eleanor had stiffened. "Jess has her own family, David. This house is a Vance house. It was your father's." "Mom, please. It's just a piece of paper. It's to protect me." She had refused to sign the new will. She'd felt a coil of ice in her gut. But she had, reluctantly, agreed to add him to her 401k account as an emergency contact with access. "Only for emergencies, David." "You swear to me." "Of course, Mom. I promise. I'd never do anything to hurt you." Now, sitting in her silent kitchen, staring at the $0 balance, she knew that emergency had arrived. It was their desperate, burning need for a giant rolling palace on wheels. The drip from the ceiling continued. Drip, tick, drip, tick. Eleanor picked up her purse. She put on her old, sensible winter coat, even though it was only fall. She walked 2 blocks down the street, her steps measured and even, to a small brick building with a faded gold leaf sign. Arthur Henderson, attorney at law. Mr. Henderson was 80 years old, with a mind as sharp as a tack and a face like a friendly bulldog. He had been Frank's friend. He had handled Frank's probate for free. He listened, his face impassive, as Eleanor laid out the story. She didn't cry. She spoke in a flat, clear monotone. The 401k, the RV, the Instagram post, the $110,000. When she finished, he leaned back in his creaking leather chair. The boy's a fool, Eleanor. A greedy, heartless fool. But Jess and that mother of hers, they're vipers. They've poisoned him. I know, Eleanor said. But there's more. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a letter she'd received 2 months ago from the Mahoning County Probate Court. A notice of filing that she hadn't understood at the time, which she had set aside. Mr. Henderson put on his reading glasses and unfolded it. His eyebrows shot up. He stood and walked to his filing cabinet, pulled a thick folder. I thought this looked familiar. They tried to file this, Eleanor, after you refused. He pulled out a document. A last will and testament, for you. He slid it across the desk. Eleanor looked at it. It left the house, her house, to my beloved son, David Vance, and my beloved daughter-in-law, Jessica Vance, as joint tenants with rights of survivorship. And at the bottom, a signature, Eleanor Vance. It was a clumsy, shaky imitation of her signature. A forgery. They filed it, Mr. Henderson said, his voice grim. I contested it immediately. The court clerk is a friend of mine, noticed the signature looked off, and that it wasn't notarized by anyone we knew. We got it thrown out on a technicality. Improper filing. I was going to tell you, Eleanor, but, frankly, I didn't know how. I didn't want to believe your boy was capable of this. Eleanor stared at the fake signature. They hadn't just stolen her future. They had tried to steal her past, her home, the very bricks and mortar that Frank had worked himself to death for. They tried to erase me, Arthur, she whispered, her voice like dry leaves. Yes, he said. They did. Eleanor stood up. The cold, sharp smile returned to her lips. Well, they missed. The following week, Eleanor went for her yearly checkup. She'd been feeling tired, more than her usual 68-year-old and worked nights tired. A deep, profound exhaustion that settled in her bones. A weariness that sleep couldn't touch. Dr. Patel was a kind man, his office filled with pictures of his grandchildren. He didn't sugarcoat things. Eleanor, the blood work came back. I'm so sorry. It's leukemia. Acute myeloid leukemia. Eleanor sat on the crinkly paper of the exam table. She looked at the poster of the human circulatory system on the wall. She felt strangely calm, as if all the pieces of a puzzle she didn't know she was solving had just clicked into place. How long? It's an aggressive form, Eleanor. With aggressive chemotherapy, maybe a year, maybe 2. It will be very hard on you without it. Without it, how long? Dr. Patel sighed, taking off his glasses. 6, maybe 8 months. Eleanor nodded. She felt a strange, profound sense of clarity. The universe had just handed her a deadline. No chemo, she said. Eleanor, we should at least try. There are options. Doctor, I'm 68 years old. My son just stole my life savings. My roof is leaking, and I am very tired. She slid off the table, her feet hitting the linoleum floor with a soft thud. I'm not spending my last days sick in a hospital bed, being a burden to no one. 6 months. She looked him in the eye. 6 months is more than enough time for what I have to do. She walked straight from the doctor's office back to Mr. Henderson's. Arthur, she said, sitting down without being asked. I have 6 months to live, and I am not dying until David and that woman are held accountable. Mr. Henderson, for the first time in their long friendship, looked stunned. He quickly recovered. A grim, lawyerly determination settled on his aged features. Okay, Eleanor. 6 months it is. Then we don't have time to be nice. We won't be slow. We will be precise. I don't just want the money back, Arthur. I don't even care about the money anymore. It's tainted. It's blood money. I want him to understand. I want him to feel, just for 1 second, what it feels like to have the floor fall out from under you. I understand, Mr. Henderson said. He steepled his fingers. Calling the bank and freezing the accounts is standard, but that's slow. The money's already been spent. The RV is purchased. Suing them for the money will take years, and you don't have years, so we adapt. So what do? We don't go after the money, Eleanor. We go after the asset. We go after the RV. A slow, wolfish smile spread across Mr. Henderson's aged face. This is what we're going to do. First, we file a police report for elder financial abuse and identity theft, citing the 401k transfer and the fraudulent will. That gives us a case number. That makes it criminal. That's our leverage. Good. Second, he continued, we're not going to call David's bank. They're amateurs. We're going to call the bank that financed the RV. That $110,000 was just the down payment. That thing must have cost upwards of $300,000, maybe more. They have a massive loan on it. He picked up the phone. Get me the number for Midwest Luxury RV Sales in Columbus, and find out who their financing partner is. Probably Mid-America Financial Services or some other big lender. He was right. An hour later, Mr. Henderson was on the phone with a vice president in the fraud department of the RV financing company. He was polite, but his voice was pure steel. Yes, Mr. Davies, that's correct. The down payment of $110,000. A cashier's check, you say? Yes, funded by a fraudulent transfer from my client's retirement account. We have a police report number. Yes, Mahoning County. We also have a notarized affidavit from my client, Mrs. Eleanor Vance, and evidence of a separate attempt to fraudulently file a will to steal her primary residence. Yes, I'll hold. He covered the receiver and looked at Eleanor. They're very interested. It seems young David and Jessica financed the RV under both their names. But the transfer? It came from an account with your name on it, which was a red flag they initially ignored because David was also on the account. Our call and the police report just confirmed their worst fears. He uncovered the phone. Yes, Mr. Davies. You're correct. The entire purchase contract is therefore based on fraud. The collateral... Yes. Well, I'm glad you agree. You have the GPS coordinates, I assume? He hung up the phone, a look of grim satisfaction on his face. What? Eleanor asked, her voice trembling slightly. The down payment check just cleared this morning. But since it was funded by fraud, it invalidates the entire purchase and loan agreement. They are extremely unhappy. They see David and Jessica as high-risk flight liabilities. They are activating the repossession clause immediately. What does that mean? It means, Mr. Henderson said, that they have a GPS tracker in that RV, and they are dispatching a national repossession team to collect their asset, wherever it may be. They're at the Grand Canyon, you said? Mildred said they were. They're probably heading to Yellowstone next. Not for long, Mr. Henderson grinned. They won't get far. The modern repo man is a wondrous thing, Eleanor. They can even remotely disable the engine. 500 miles away, in a campground at Yellowstone National Park, David was starting to feel the champagne wear off. The RV was incredible, yes, a rolling testament to wealth and technology. But Jess and her mother, they were insufferable. They did nothing but shop online for new outfits and complain about the spotty Wi-Fi. David, this espresso machine is awful, Jess complained. It's not an espresso. For what we paid, you'd think it would have a proper grinder. David was outside, in the cold Wyoming air, emptying the septic tank. A job he had not anticipated, a job that smelled awful and made him gag. He could hear Jess and Barbara talking inside, their voices carrying clearly through the open window. Seriously, Mom, as soon as we get to California, we're done, Jess said in a low, conspiratorial whisper. I told you, sweetie. He's weak. He's just like his mother. No backbone. We get to L.A. We find a buyer for this thing. Cash. We dissolve the joint account, and we take a nice long trip to Spain. Just us. What about David? What about him? He'll go crying back to Youngstown. He's a mama's boy. He's just a very stupid, very temporary ATM. David froze. His hands, covered in thick rubber gloves, tightened on the hose. A temporary ATM. He felt the blood drain from his face. He stood there, the smell of chemicals and waste filling his nose, and realized he hadn't just stolen from his mother. He had destroyed his life for a woman who thought he was garbage. He felt sick. The collapse began at a Flying J truck stop just outside of Cheyenne, Wyoming. Ugh, this place smells like diesel and desperation, Barbara sniffed, stepping out of the RV with her tiny dog. Jessica, let's go inside and find some bottled water that doesn't taste like plastic. David, fill it up, and be quick. David, still numb from what he'd overheard, his mind a whirlwind of shame and anger, went to the pump. He put the massive nozzle into the RV's tank and went to pay. He swiped the joint credit card. Declined. He frowned. That was impossible. There was thousands in the account. He tried again. Declined. He tried his personal debit card, the one linked to it. Declined. A cold sweat broke out on his neck. He walked inside the convenience store, his footsteps echoing on the dirty tile. Hey, can you run this card again? The pump must be broken. The cashier, a tired-looking woman with a name tag that said, Brenda, ran it. Sorry, hun. Says, account frozen. Contact bank. What? No. Try this one. He gave her the other card. Same thing. Account frozen. He ran outside, his heart hammering. Jess and Barbara were coming out, carrying bags of chips and magazines. What's taking so long, David? We're burning daylight, Jess snapped, pulling her sunglasses down. The cards, they're not working. They're all frozen. Jess's face went from annoyed to furious in a fraction of a second. What do you mean, frozen? What did you do? I didn't do anything. I don't know. Call the bank, you idiot, Barbara shrieked, her voice cracking. Right now. David fumbled for his phone. He called the bank. The automated system was endless. Finally, a representative. Yes, Mr. Vance. Your accounts have been frozen pending an investigation into fraudulent activity linked to an account belonging to an Eleanor Vance. We cannot give you any more information. A criminal complaint has been filed. David dropped the phone. It clattered on the asphalt. A criminal complaint? Jess whispered, her face pale, all the color draining away. She called the cops? Your mother? The old bitch! Barbara screamed, drawing stares from truckers. I knew she was a spiteful old hag. She's ruining everything. We have to go, Jess said, her eyes wide with panic. We have to go now! Forget the gas! Let's just drive! We'll deal with it in California! They all piled into the RV. David slid into the driver's seat, his hands shaking so badly he could barely fit the key in the ignition. He turned the key. Click. All the dashboard lights flashed on, then off. But the engine, nothing. What is it? Jess yelled from the back. It's not starting, David stammered. He tried again. Click. What do you mean, it's not starting? It's brand new. You broke it. I don't know. It's just dead. He tried again and again. Click, click, click. Then his phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. This is National Asset Recovery. Your vehicle, a 2024 Monarch Kingliner, VIN number, has been remotely disabled, pending repossession due to a fraudulent purchase contract. A tow unit is en route. Please remove your personal belongings. Do not interfere. David read the text out loud. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the rumble of passing 18-wheelers. Barbara was the first to break it. She let out a sound like a deflating balloon. Repossession? Jess's face crumpled. Fraudulent contract? That means the down payment. She didn't just freeze the accounts. She undid it. She took the RV back. That crazy old woman? Barbara was now scrambling, pulling her suitcase from the overhead bin. This is it, Jessica! We're leaving! This loser, she spat, pointing at David, has ruined us! He's poison! We're getting an Uber! Mom, we're in the middle of Wyoming! Jess was crying now, mascara running down her face. Where are we going to go? Anywhere but here. Barbara pulled out her phone. There's a motel 30 miles away. I'm calling a car. I don't care if it takes 2 hours. I'm not being arrested with this child. What about our stuff? It's just stuff, Jessica. Get your purse. Get your passport. David sat there paralyzed in the plush leather captain's chair. He watched as the two women, his wife, his mother-in-law, scrambled to grab their designer bags and laptops. They didn't say a word to him. They didn't even look at him. 20 minutes later, a dusty sedan pulled up. Jess and Barbara ran to it, dragging their suitcases. Jess! David cried, finally moving, stumbling out of the RV. Jess, wait! Where are you going? Don't leave me here. I love you. Jess paused, her hand on the car door. She turned, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated contempt. You're a joke, David. You're a weak, stupid mama's boy. And my mother was right. You are poison. Have fun going back to your rusty, pathetic little town. She got in the car. It sped off, kicking up gravel, leaving David standing alone in the massive shadow of the silent, useless, stolen motorhome. He stood there for a long time. The sun began to set. Truckers stared at him with a mixture of pity and curiosity. A tow truck, a massive, menacing rig, pulled into the lot. David, with nowhere else to turn, with nothing left in the world, did the only thing he could. He pulled out his phone and dialed the one number that had been a constant his entire life. It rang 3 times. Hello? Her voice. It was quiet, calm, not angry, not sad, just calm. Mom? He choked, the word tearing out of him. Mom, it's me. David. I know who it is, David. Mom, what did you do? He sobbed, the tears finally coming, hot and shameful, cutting tracks in the grime on his face. What did you do? They took the RV. The accounts are frozen. Jess and Barbara, they left me. They left me at a truck stop in Wyoming. I have nothing, Mom. I have nothing. He waited for her to yell, to scream, to cry. He waited for the I told you so. But there was only silence. A long, cold silence. Then her voice as clear and cold as the Ohio winter. I didn't do anything, David. I just reported a theft. You did all the rest of this to yourself. Mom, please. You have to help me. I'm stranded. I'll do anything. I'll pay you back, I swear. How? With what money, David? The money you already stole? The money you were planning to take to Spain? He froze. What? You're a fool, David. You thought you were a player, but you were just a pawn. They were leaving you in California. Mom, please, I'm your son, he wailed, a desperate, childish plea. Another pause. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, but filled with an iron finality that terrified him more than any anger. Yes, you are. And a mother's job is to teach her son, even when it hurts. This is your lesson, David. It's time for you to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet. You wanted to be a man? This is what it feels like. Click. She hung up. David stared at his phone. The tow truck driver, a large man with a clipboard, tapped him on the shoulder. Son, you gotta get your stuff. This rig's gotta go. It took David 3 days to get home. 3 days on a Greyhound bus. He sat in the back, smelling of diesel fumes and unwashed clothes, his face pressed against the greasy window. He had sold his laptop at a pawn shop in Cheyenne for $42 in cash. He watched America roll by, the endless cornfields of Nebraska, the flat plains of Iowa, the smokestacks of Indiana. It was the reverse of the triumphant journey he had planned. He was a king in reverse, trading his rolling palace for a cramped seat next to a snoring stranger. He ate stale crackers and drank tap water from restroom sinks. With every mile, the humiliation burned deeper. He thought of his mother, her voice on the phone. This is your lesson. He thought of Jess. You're poison. He thought of his father's Mustang sold for his education. An education he had used to forge a will and steal from his own mother. He finally arrived at the bus station in Youngstown. It was drizzling. The city looked gray, defeated. It looked like he felt. He didn't know where to go. He couldn't go to his apartment in Columbus. The locks were probably already changed, the accounts emptied by Jess. He had one place left. He walked the 2 miles to his mother's house. He stood on the sidewalk, rain soaking his thin jacket. The house was small, but it looked solid. The roof, he noticed, still had the old, curled shingles. The leak was probably still there. He didn't have the courage to knock. He just stood there, a 40-year-old ghost, until a car pulled up. It was Mr. Henderson. He got out, holding an umbrella. David, he said, his voice void of any pity. I expected you? Mr. Henderson, I need to see my mom. I need to apologize. Your mother isn't seeing anyone right now, David. She's not well. Not well? What do you mean? Is it the stress? Quote. She has leukemia, son, acute myeloid leukemia. Mr. Henderson's eyes were hard. 6 months, maybe less, and you spent the last of her good days stealing her money and running around the desert with those 2 harpies. David felt his knees buckle. He leaned against the wet chain-link fence. Leukemia. She was dying, and he was at the Grand Canyon. He was emptying the septic tank. Oh, God, he whispered, the world tilting. Oh, my God, I didn't know. Of course you didn't know, Mr. Henderson said, his voice like flint. You never bothered to ask. You never called unless you wanted something. You were too busy living the dream. I have to fix this. I'll sign whatever she wants. I'll give back the... You will, Mr. Henderson said, interrupting him. You will be at the Mahoning County Courthouse tomorrow at 9 a.m. We have a mediation. You will sign a full confession of the financial fraud. You will sign a document waiving any and all claims to your mother's estate, including this house. You will agree to a repayment plan, though we all know you'll never pay it. And if I do, she'll drop the criminal charges? In exchange for your full cooperation, yes. Eleanor does not want to see her son in prison. She just wants justice. And she wants her house, the house your father worked for, to be safe from your wife. She's not my wife, not anymore. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Don't be late, David, and find somewhere else to sleep. Mr. Henderson got back in his car and drove away, leaving David alone in the rain. The next morning, David was at the courthouse, wearing the same dirty clothes. He sat in a sterile conference room. Eleanor was already there, sitting opposite him at the long table. He gasped. She was thin, her skin a pale, waxy yellow. Her hair was gone. She wore a simple, soft-knit cap. The 68-year-old woman he had left, the woman who had always seemed as solid as the steel her husband worked, was gone. In her place was this frail, elderly, dying woman, his mother. "Mom," he whispered, tears welling up, thick and hot. She didn't look at him. She just stared at the papers in front of her. Mr. Henderson sat beside her, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. "Just sign, David," Mr. Henderson said, pushing the stack of papers toward him. David picked up the pen, his hand shaking. He was about to sign the first page when the door to the conference room burst open. It was Jess and Barbara. Their hair was a mess, their eyes wild. "Don't sign anything, David," Jess shrieked, her face blotchy and enraged. "This is coercion. She's a dying old woman. She's not competent. He's her son. She can't do this." "Get out," Mr. Henderson said, standing up. "You are not a party to this mediation. In fact, you're lucky you're not being charged as an accessory." "I am his wife. What's his is mine." "Not for long, you're not," Barbara snarled, pointing at Eleanor. "You did this. You ruined my daughter's life, you old witch. You had no right to that money." "She didn't ruin it," David said, his voice quiet, but filled with a new dead weight. "I did. And you did. It was her money. It was her life." "What did you say?" Jess moved toward him. "I said, you're done. Get out." Just then, the doors opened again. A man with a large television camera and a reporter holding a microphone entered. "Mr. Vance?" "Ma'am, we're from WFMJ News. We got a tip about a severe case of elder financial abuse." Barbara and Jess froze. The camera's bright light clicked on, illuminating them, their faces twisted in greed and anger. Mr. Henderson had planned this. He stepped calmly in front of the camera. "We're in a private mediation." "But yes, my client, Mrs. Eleanor Vance, a dying cancer patient, was defrauded of her entire 401k by her son and his wife, who then went on a luxury vacation while her mother's roof was caving in." The camera panned from Mr. Henderson to Jess and Barbara, their faces frozen in horror, and then to David, hunched over the table, pen in hand. "Get that camera out of here!" Jess shrieked, covering her face and running from the room, Barbara scrambling after her. The reporter turned to David. "Sir, do you have any comment?" David just shook his head, tears streaming down his face as he signed paper after paper. The camera then focused on Eleanor. She sat with perfect, frail dignity. She looked for the first time at her son. Her eyes were not angry. They were just empty, done. She stood up slowly. She walked over to him. The camera zoomed in. She placed a simple manila envelope on the table in front of him. "You were my entire life, David," she said, her voice a whisper, but clear in the quiet room. "But I was just an ATM to you." She turned, and with Mr. Henderson's help, walked slowly out of the room, past the reporter, past the camera, and didn't look back. The story was the lead on the 6 o'clock news. Son steals dying mother's retirement. Jess and Barbara were humiliated. David was a pariah. Eleanor went home. She passed away 2 months later, quietly, in her sleep, in her own bed, in her own house. The roof was still leaking. The funeral was small. Just Mr. Henderson and Mildred from next door. David watched from across the street. He didn't dare approach. A week later, Mr. Henderson found him sleeping in his old car parked down the street. "She's gone, David," he said. David just nodded, his face buried in his hands. "She left you this." Mr. Henderson handed him the keys to the house. She never changed that part of the old will. And the envelope. She wanted you to have it." David walked into the empty, silent house. It smelled of his mother, of old coffee and dust and Vicks Vaporub. He sat in her worn-out armchair. He opened the manila envelope. Inside were his childhood photos, his first drawing of a house, a lock of his baby hair, and a letter. He unfolded it, his mother's shaky, elegant script. "My dearest David, by the time you read this, I'll be with your father. I still believe in the boy I raised. The boy who loved animals and always shared his candy. I don't know where he went, but I pray he finds his way back. You took my money, but you cannot take my love. You can only reject it. I am leaving you the house. Not as a reward, but as a chance to start over, to be the man your father would have been proud of, to be the man I was proud of. Don't look for me when I'm gone. I am not in this empty house. I will be in every mistake you choose not to repeat. I will be in every kind act you do for someone else without expecting anything in return. I will be in the leaky roof that you must now learn to fix yourself. I love you. I forgive you. Now please, forgive yourself." "Mom?" David held the letter to his chest, the paper crinkling in his fist. He sat in the chair for a long, long time as the weak Ohio light faded to black, the sound of the persistent drip from the ceiling the only sound in the house. Drip, drip, drip. A lesson and a task left behind.